Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Old Hunt, where we are still celebrating 10 years of Bloodborne. Last time, we talked at great length about what may or may not be going on with the Vilebloods, and, the ritually impure blood clan, whatever you want to call them. I like Vilebloods. But we talked about that at some length. But we haven't really talked about the other side of this particular set of interactions. We haven't really talked about, it would be key items, right? Yes, we haven't really talked about Alfred and his quest. And he's given us a lot of information, right? He tells us some very important things about the world of Bloodborne, helps us put together, if we're thinking very hard, what our quest is even supposed to be. He gives us some vital information on that, and he also tells us that he is a hunter of Vilebloods. And he's hoping, right, way back when he asks you to accept his offer of cooperation, he's hoping that if we agree to share if we agree to share information, he'll help us, and then in turn, we will help him. And what's he looking for? What does he want? He's looking for the path to Cainhurst Castle. And how did we get there? Well, we had an invitation addressed to us that told us to await the carriage at Hemwick Charnel Crossing, or Hemwick Crossing, whatever it is. We went there, and we got picked up. We went on an impossible carriage ride. We arrived at Cainhurst Castle. And having discovered Annalise's chamber, we found this. We found an unopened summons. Literally, an unopened invitation letter. And so let's just read, it's a very short description. We're going to read through it here. An unopened old invitation letter, an unopened old summons, whatever you want to call it. Like the first letter, it is likely a thing that is inviting someone to Cainhurst. The direction has not been particularly filled out, right? So the idea is, this is essentially a blank version of this one, right? So we could either do this ourselves, we could write Alfred in here and send him to Cainhurst Castle, or we could give it to Alfred, he could write his own name down, and have himself invited to Cainhurst Castle, and that would allow him to get to where he wanted to go this whole time, and fulfill his hunt. So he's helped us out with our hunt. We have a question now to answer ourselves. Do we help him with his? Do we want to have him go and hunt the last remaining Vileblood? I mean, he doesn't even know. He should be hunting us too, because now we're also Vilebloods. That would be an interesting turn of events. But I don't think you can really get that unless you instigate an attack on him, right? I don't think he ever figures out, because he makes sense. He has no real reason to figure out that you yourself have become a Vileblood if you've taken the oath, right? It's totally possible that you would have not taken the oath and get this letter anyway, and then you can just give it to him, and things will play out as they will. But I think this is a moment where it's another one, or I should say, it's another one of these moments, right, where you're confronted with the nature of what it is to be a hunter. Because what do we do to beasts? Right? We slaughter them. We put them down. And what's Alfred going to do if we give him the means to go where he wishes in Cainhurst? He's going to hunt his prey. He's going to slaughter them. There's only really one left. It's not going to be pretty for Annalise if we hand this over. And this is a moment where I really like how subtle Bloodborne is. And I also like that I could see this questline being more exclusive to what you have or haven't done than it currently is, right? It could be a setup where if you agree to join up with the Vilebloods, that precludes you from giving this letter to Alfred, but it doesn't. Bloodborne allows you the freedom of action to do what you want in this regard. And even after you've accepted, right, the Vileblood oath, and you've gotten some of the quest reward items, you can go and still give this to Alfred. And it's all, the thing that I really like about it, I think, is that it's all dictated by your actions, and you have an astonishing level of freedom to be as true or not true to whatever tenet you want to hold as possible. And it goes down to, I think I started to say this, but forgot to finish the thought, where the oath runes, right? You can have one oath rune on and then take it off and switch to another, right? So ultimately you can sort of choose your allegiances as you wish. And I can easily see games sort of clamping down on that and requiring that you follow one path or the other. And there are some ways in which Bloodborne does this, right? You can't get every ending to every quest all the time, but you can get access to every one of these oaths, and you can choose which one you want to uphold and how. And I think that's great. And I don't think it's necessarily like the only way to do things, right? Like I said, there are aspects of Bloodborne where you do have to sort of make a choice where the sort of path forks in one direction or the other, and you can only go down one in a specific playthrough. And that's fine. That's a totally valid way of telling stories, right? Like I was talking before about how when it comes to helping Eileen, it's the same sort of thing. You have to act. You have to initiate. You have to help her out. And you can, like, the verbal support that you may or may not have given her doesn't necessarily mean much. It's what you do when she tells you don't go near and interfere with this fight. You can give her that human support, or you can not give her that human support. And that's your call. And whatever your reasons, things play out the way they play out. And maybe you can try again on the next world cycle, right? But the ability to do things that way is not, like, the only good way to do things. There are perfectly good stories in video games where they give you the choice, one or the other, or they give you, it's just a dialogue option and you choose one or the other. I love games like that too. But I love that Bloodborne does this way. I think it's very appropriate to the Soulsborne setting. And I love the way that it makes your actions matter, and it rewards you for understanding what you're doing, right? I think if you're just treating this as like a quest thing, as a bunch of things to like check off a list, you may be very surprised by how this particular next quest goes. If you're paying attention, it's not that much of a surprise. There's still a little bit of a shock factor to it, but it's not that much of a surprise what ends up happening. Anyway, I'm going to go, and I knew there was a ladder. Where does this ladder go? This is the fast way that I was looking for when I came down and ended up fighting all those beasts. Oh, of course. Of course. It's the one part of this house that I just ran past because I never think of taking it, right? So I was up here and I was thinking of dropping down. But what could have happened was, because when I think of dropping down onto like that pillar over there so I can get to that house. Or I think of dropping down off to the side so that I can go through the inner way and not get shot at. I never think, because I'm almost never in this situation, to just go down the ladder that's like directly beneath me here in order to easily access this little courtyard. Huh. Funny how the way that the world's put together works that way. Anyway, before we go and give that summons to Alfred, which, spoiler alert, that's what we're going to do in the latter part of this episode, we've got some rewards to claim from Vileblood Queen Annalise first. So I'm going to warp around a little bit, and then I will see you back in Cainhurst Castle. Right, here we are again. I have lots of blood dregs to offer, and we know our place. We're going to kneel before our queen.
Closest of kin, bearer of our blood, I welcome thee. What is thy wish?
What a triumph of translation. Anyway, we can offer up the blood drag or we can leave. So let's offer up a blood drag. And oh, this is nice. I forgot that this was the case. I'm so used to only having one to offer that I just only ever offer one. But the fact that you can offer, back in Dark Souls, you had to select individual quest items, and I think you had to use them? Maybe you could donate them, but I know you had to do it one at a time. I think that was one of the things when they did the HD remaster of Dark Souls. They made it so that you could do this. It's a huge quality of life improvement. And it's good so that it's like already here in Bloodborne. You can just choose to offer as many as you have, or less if you want to hold on to some for some reason. I've already read the description. No need for me to be that completionist and hold on to a blood drag, so I'm going to offer all three. Here you go, Annalise.
Thy gift pleases us. Let this reward be thine. Indulge thyself in our tainted blood.
Right, and we got the gesture. That's the big quest reward.
We await thy return. This chamber was made not for one alone. For the honor of Cainhurst.
I already said it in this thing. It's just, I'm blown away. The translation is so good. Anyway, this gift pleases us. I can't stop myself. This gift pleases us, right? Like, I am deeply grateful for your gift, right? I'll put up on the screen, like, what a more literal translation would be. But it's just so much more appropriate to the character, to the setting. I love it. Anyway, I've gushed on that long enough. I've talked about it probably in Translation Born already. I'm going to head back. We've got, I didn't appreciate the fact that I gave her 3 blood dregs. And what do her closest of kin, there's no other Vilebloods around. What do I get out of it? I get a gesture. You got to be kidding me. We're going to go have some words with Alfred. Okay, we're back, and it's time to hand over that particular invitation.
Oh, good to see you safe. Now, let's think up something to discuss. Just tell me what piques your interest.
Here we go. This is the dialogue option here. Hand over the unopened summons. There you go, Alfred. Just what you've been looking for.
Aha! Is that the sigil of Cainhurst? I've heard tell of Cainhurst nobles and their amusingly pompous invitations. Wonderful. I thank you profusely. I will depart immediately, but first, a token of my gratitude. Ah, I feel my master's hand at work. Praise the good blood, and let us cleanse these tarnished streets.
You sound a little different, Alfred. You sound a little bit more fanatical.
It has been an honor, but I must say goodbye. Let us cleanse these tarnished streets, and may the good blood guide your way.
Interesting. They give you the blessings in reverse order in English, in the voice line as opposed to the Japanese, but they're both there. Let us cleanse these tarnished streets. Just a little bit more sinister there, Alfred. Now that you've fulfilled your purpose. This is sort of what I was getting at a long time ago when I was sort of contrasting his storyline with Jira's. And I think I brought it up at a few subsequent points in the playthrough, where Jira attacks you with a Gatling gun, and you think, oh, this guy's terrible. And then you climb up the tower, you hear his reasoning, and he's just trying to protect the beasts because he recognizes that they were once people, and therefore he thinks they should still be treated sort of as people and left to their own devices, left alone. There's no need to go down and just slaughter them all. Alfred, he starts out being like, hey, I'm a hunter like you, and our prey might be different, but we can cooperate, and, here's some stuff, welcome. He's, very friendly. He gives you all this helpful information. Then it turns out, he's like the total opposite of Yura. He wants to slaughter down to the last surviving person, the Vilebloods. That is his goal. That's what it means for him to be a hunter of Vilebloods. And so it's sort of like each one of those characters does a transformation, right? This goes back, I think, to the idea of Bloodborne and changing. Also character dichotomies, right? Because you have the one aspect of the character that's presented to you, and then you're eventually presented with the other. But rather than get this sort of... It still results in a very human character, I think. But rather than sort of throw you the dilemma kind of immediately of the contradictory nature of the different impulses that the character has, this one is sort of presenting one aspect and then another aspect later on, and then confronting you with the gap. And he pulls something of a little bit of a trick on you. And I realize that's a redundant thing to say. But anyway, that having been said, we need to sort of reload things for him to relocate. And I just want to... Okay, good. Right. Yeah, I'm going to ignore the dog for now. Potentially dangerous. Okay. Should have targeted the dog for now. Of course, now it's run away. What a shambles. Right, bark at me. Okay, I can one-shot the dog. That's good to know. Alright. This thing is stout, but it is always stout against physical attacks. Not really the smartest way to attack that sort of enemy. I'm very curious. How do I do with this against the church giants? Oh, okay, that's a healthy amount of damage. Yeah! Oh, I was worried, but not anymore. Cool. Okay. I feel better now. Let's just run back. This is a little dangerous, but I'm gonna try it. Uh-oh. He caught me. Just managed to avoid that backswing of the axe there. I'm happy about that. Yeah, good. Thankfully, he pointed at me rather than attacking, or I'd have been doomed. Alright, good. Straight past all the enemies. I went the smart way this time, as opposed to trying to rush through the one point that I always do in Erden Chapel. Came back to the Grand Cathedral. Anyway, I've got a little bit more warping around to do. We're going to go back to Cainhurst Castle, see what Alfred makes of acting immediately on that invitation. And little bit of a warning here. This is going to be something of a disturbing scene, and it's going to start a little bit before, if 1.00 works the way that the current version of the game does, start a little bit before I actually get to the room, so be ready.
Master, look! I've done it! I've done it! I smashed and pounded and grounded this rotten siren into fleshy pink pulp. There, you filthy monstrosity! What good's your immortality now? Try stirring up trouble in this sorry state. All mangled and twisted, with every inside on the outside for all the world to see.
Yeah, he's really intense. And he's not kidding. This is what's become of Annalise. We can see this is the iron mask that she was imprisoned in. And this is what's left of her. He really did smash and ground and pound her into a fine paste. And he's still covered in chunks of her flesh and blood. Horrifying. Also, I think it's time that I put my background settings back up. Not the brightness settings. Here we go. Get the sound effects back on. Didn't want the loading in sound interfering with the dialogue. Anything else to say here, buddy?
You, is it? Look at this. Thanks to you, I've done it. Well, isn't it wonderful? Now Master can be canonized as a true martyr. I've done it. I have.
It's pure fanaticism and madness, if you ask me. I mean, she's still alive. You can see the movement on the flesh. And if I follow this prompt, which is inspect, I can take some of that queenly flesh, which, great translation, by the way. So literally it is like a meat fragment of the queen. Could be a queen, but in this case, we know who the queen is. It's Annalise, right? So meat fragment of the queen. But the wording around queenly flesh is like so in line with her style of dialogue, right? Her elevated speech, that sort of early modern English Shakespearean flair. It fits so well as an item name that you could take this hunk of meat, but it's not just any hunk of meat from a queen. It's the queenly flesh. It's beautiful. It's so appropriate. Also kind of funny in a dark way. You gotta take what you can get. Anyway, we got that from her. I think Alfred's done. Let me just make triply sure here.
I've done it. I have.
Yep, you definitely did something all right. Okay, so there's one more thing that I want to do with Alfred, and then we can sort of look back a little bit more on his storyline. So I'm going to warp around closer to Old Yarnum again. I'll see you again soon. Okay, we're back towards the church that, has the sepulchre, which moves to reveal the entrance to Old Yarnum. This is where we first met Alfred. And now that we've seen him in his fully dressed form with that weird pyramid on his head, you can look up and notice this statue here has a pyramid on its head, right? This is clearly a grave in some sort of honor of the executioners. It's a cool, like, background detail that, again, it's one of these things, Bloodborne puts it right in front of you, and you don't have the context for it. So you're just like, that's a weird statue. What's going on? Why the cone, like the pyramid head? And then you get to the end of Alfred's quest, and all of a sudden it makes sense. Also, what doesn't make so much sense, Alfred down here is dead. He seems to have killed himself. And there is a crown of illusions upon the altar. Is this the crown of illusions? Because we still have, if I can find it, I have so many items now. We still have the crown of illusions. Right here. It's also right here. Is there a duplicate? What's going on? So this is another way that I want to come back to. And by the way, this Radiance rune here, this is the Oath rune for the Executioners. Not going to deal with it right now. Got a lot of lore things related to the Executioners and things that I've been talking about. And we'll get through it all in time. We've probably got a few more Cainhurst related items and a few more Executioner related items to get through. But not in the immediate future. We're going to sort of space those out a little bit. But as far as like Alfred's ending here, I want to go back to the idea that I was talking about several episodes ago now, where I was considering the way that Bloodborne's world is put together, and I was sort of entertaining the notion that maybe we have an idea where we can conceive of the world as sort of pervaded by the dream, right? There's a certain extent to which the dream has just penetrated reality. It's percolated its way through the real world, and we can see its influence at work, particularly in the hidden away or obscure areas, like Cainhurst Castle. And that explains our carriage ride. It does not explain Alfred's carriage ride. Also, it makes sense that we can get back from Cainhurst Castle. We have access to the dream. We can warp from a lantern in any point in Cainhurst Castle where there's a lantern and go back to the Hunter's Dream and then warp to any other point where there's a lantern in the streets. So it makes sense that we can travel around the world that way. How did Alfred get here? It doesn't make any sense. This is another complete impossibility. This one's easier to miss because it doesn't involve us. It's easy to just pick up an item and gloss over it. But it doesn't actually make sense now, does it? And I didn't even think of this, speaking of ways in which it's easy to gloss over it, I didn't even think of this until I got a comment on an episode where I was, the episode just came out, where I was talking about how, okay, Alfred here is, or we are like maybe a dead spirit in a dream world, so it makes sense for us to get this carriage ride. And I knew it didn't make quite as much sense for Alfred to get the carriage ride. I thought of that after I recorded the episode, figured I'd bring it up now. I never thought myself, how does he get back? Because even if you can explain the invitation as the dream sort of intervenes on his behalf and sends him to Cainhurst Castle, maybe there's some dream logic involved in the invitation, right? I could make that argument, right? The dream has pervaded reality enough such that even though Alfred doesn't have access to the dream, isn't necessarily a dead spirit, he does have access to an invitation. And if the dream logic still works, he goes with an invitation to Hemwick Crossing. That'll bring him to Cainhurst Castle. He can get there. Doesn't explain how he can get back. He is not tied to the dream. He can't warp around the world like we do. And the carriage, you would think, stops working? Like, we never take a carriage ride back. And Annalise, I guess Annalise is still alive? So maybe it's still functional? And if the invitation is good one way, it's also good the other? But it's really, really hazy and unclear. And basically, this is all pushing me back towards the idea that all of Yharnam that we run around in here, maybe not literally all of Yharnam, as we'll see at the very end of the playthrough, but all of the Yharnam that we're running around in here may very well just be a dream. I said I'd explore it, and you've gone on a roller coaster ride with me if you've been following along with the playthrough, because I was like more and more invested in this idea as I was going through Old Yharnam, and then I hit the abandoned old workshop and it just shot down. And I was like, nope, back in my old pattern of thinking. I feel like it just doesn't make sense to think of it this way. And even with the carriage ride to Cainhurst, I was like, nah, I still don't like the idea. Now, it's seeming more reasonable than ever to me. Maybe I'm back on the upswing here. Maybe this is going to be where I end it. And it does work. If we consider all of this world of Yharnam to be a dream, it does work with the idea that we ourselves are a dead spirit, and it makes sense that we'd be able to interact with the city this way. May or may not make sense of the, like, lines about our moonlit scent, but that's, its own other topic. Anyway, the other thing I want to talk about here is Alfred's end, right? Because this is somewhat inexplicable. He's achieved what he wanted. He, as far as he's concerned, right, he went and essentially finished off the Vilebloods, put Annalise into a state where no one has to, like, go and stop her from leaving the throne room, right? Like, Martyr Ligarius no longer needs to keep his undead vigil, so he can bring back, impossibly, did he fight Martyr Ligarius? How did he even get this crown? It doesn't make any sense. Maybe, here's another reason for dream logic. I honestly, I think they just, didn't think people would think this hard about it, or were hoping people wouldn't think this hard about it. But anyway, you see that after Alfred has sort of completed his quest, he has also taken his life. So there is that aspect of things to think about, right? What is the end of a hunter? Once you fulfill your quest, what awaits you? Alfred chose death. Now, he didn't really need to, but, he got what he wanted. He got Martyr Ligarius's sort of will honored beyond Martyr Ligarius's own death, and then he ended his own life. And that's going to have some repercussions for our playthrough. I don't know necessarily how much to make of it. I do think that if you can sort of see a parallel in some of the fates for our hunter, in, like, if you go down this branch of Alfred's storyline, and if you go down the other branch, not the one that I'm on right now, but if you go down the other branch of Eileen's storyline, where you are cooperative with her and get to help her fight enemies, there's a version of the end of her quest where I think you can sort of get an idea of another end to a hunter. But I don't know. The quest lines are sort of variable enough that it's not necessarily a very strong tie. And one last thing that I wanted to talk about in regards to Alfred and his whole quest line here, now that we've basically seen it through to its end. We're not, by the way, Queen Annalise is still alive. We're not done with that quest line. But one thing that I wanted to revisit in terms of Alfred that I've heard when I was watching, like, other lore videos is the idea that Alfred can't have been one of the original groups of executioners, right? He literally can't be. This site here, I don't know about these, statues with their arms upraised. I don't know if they're particularly relevant here, but certainly this large grave here is visibly a dedication to the executioners. So the executioners are already something of a legend in whatever modern times these are in Yharnam. And Martyr Ligarius is, obviously, it looks like he's been long dead, sitting up there on his frozen throne, preventing anyone from reaching Annalise. And Alfred's alive. And he doesn't talk or act like he's looking for the path to Cainhurst Castle. He doesn't talk or act like he's been to Cainhurst Castle before, and now he needs to find his way back. None of that. No. He's someone who appreciates Martyr Ligarius and his expedition of genocide, essentially. And he was like, the only problem I see here is Martyr Ligarius had to stay and couldn't finish off the last one. So I want to fix that so he can be honored as a true martyr. That sort of leads to this here. But in doing so, that's sort of an admission. Again, he never actually knew Martyr Ligarius. So as much as he dresses as an executioner, and he's got the whole helmet, the pyramid hat thing, and he's got all that stuff going on, he's not actually one of the original executioners, it seems, right? If you consider the lore and the way that his storyline progresses and all of that, it sort of seems like he's just a fanboy. And I've heard it put that way before. It's somewhat dismissive and kind of funny to call him a fanboy, and I think that's fair. I think it's fun to have fun with this game. I've had fun with it going, all right, the Tomb Raider set, like it's fun to just take those serious concepts that the game gives you and have a little bit of fun with them. But I do think we can take this also in a little bit more serious light, because what's one of the major themes in Bloodborne, right? It's the persistence of the dead, right? We live in a world of the present that is haunted by its past, where the will of the dead inheres within blood and grants us strength. And legacy is one of the most important themes. So the idea that Alfred would take up the quest of the executioners, honor what they're trying to achieve after they have died, is a perfect example of him carrying out the will of the dead in the present time. This, it really is one of these moments where the power of legacy is coming around full force. And you can sort of hear him allude to this, right? Because he talks about, was this perhaps my master's will? I can't remember the line exactly, but I'll put the right one up on the screen. And when he's thinking about that, right, he's like, I feel my master's hand at work, right? It's like, I don't think he's talking about, Martyr Ligarius had this, idea that someone was going to randomly stumble across his ideas and fulfill his vision. He's just talking, I think, I could be wrong about this, pure speculation, I think he's talking about Martyr Ligarius did what he did in order to best accomplish his dream, and then stayed there so that someone else could finish the work, right? And in doing so, his will echoed forward, and Alfred picked it up and followed through with it. So I think you can sort of see in that line the way that Alfred is thinking about the legacy of Martyr Ligarius and his role as an executioner. I think, by the logic of Bloodborne, we can call him an executioner because he took up the oath, right? He has the oath rune that we get, and he carried out their mission beyond their deaths. He took up their legacy and fulfilled his hunt. And that's also ties in a little bit with what I was saying about the end of a hunter, right? Once you've fulfilled the legacy, the tasks that's set ahead for you, what awaits, right? What comes next? This comes next, apparently. Now, as I was also hinting at, and there's a reason, I picked up that scrap of flesh. It's probably a key item. Yes, indeed. The queenly flesh. Now, this is going to come back later. We're not done with Annalise. She's still alive. And this is extremely cool. It's a little bit of a missed opportunity, but we don't have to dwell on that part just yet, right? We'll get there in time. But I do want to take a look at this and read the description, because as much as Alfred thinks he's done, he's really not. Which is why I don't mind going through with this storyline when I play the game, because I always know Alfred ultimately, as long as you do the right thing, is not going to succeed. And I'm not sure I would want him to. So, I mean, make of that what you will in terms of my own personal stance on how I like to play games. But that's sort of neither here nor there for this description. Let's go. I already talked about the name, the Queenly Flesh. Great. Let's go ahead and do the description. Okay, Cainhurst's Queen of Blood, Annalise's pitiful end state. Boy, end state sounds awkward, right? But it's like, this is what has become. This is the end to which Annalise has been reduced to, right? The pitiful state that Cainhurst's Queen of Blood, Annalise, has been reduced to. And I do think that this is the item, because I haven't done the editing for that episode yet, even though I remember talking about it. I do think this is the item where in the official translation they do talk about Cainhurst's Queen of Blood, as opposed to just Queen of Castle Cainhurst, Annalise. So there is, right, the idea of a Queen of Blood in the official translation. And that's Annalise. And does the Queen of Blood have something to do with the Child of Blood? Right? Is it specifically because she's a Queen of Blood that she has the ability to perform that sort of immaculate conception that I was speculating about in the previous episode? I don't know. This is all very theoretical. I'm getting ahead of myself. We've only read the first two lines. All right, well, there's a blank space, and then we get the final section here. However, this pink lump of flesh is still warm, as if cursed. What a wonderful undeath. What a wonderful undeath, O Queen of Blood. That final line, they're really having fun with the final line in the Japanese there. And if I recall correctly, the translators pick up on that and they just run with it. It's, behold the undying Queen of Blood, right? Like, this is the magnificent state to which, the mighty Annalise's immortality has given her, right? This is what's become of her. And it's interesting, because I thought there was going to be more of a hint to the way that this quest line resolves, but it's not. This particular quest line is well and truly hidden, and like I was sort of alluding to, possibly you could find it a little bit underwhelming. I find it a little bit underwhelming because something very cool happens, and the way that it's implemented in the game, you'd barely even know something happened at all. But we'll get there. We'll get to it when we get to it. For now, we'll just hold on to an undying scrap of Annalise's flesh. She's alive despite her death. Just despite her sorry state, I guess. Despite her being pulverized, she's still alive. And, I mean, this has to still be some sort of terrible experience for her. She doesn't talk about it. It's one of the things that's so disappointing. But it has to be, right? Because is she conscious in this state? I don't know. This isn't her head that we have. Maybe we just grabbed a portion of her midsection and she's up there with her head on the floor and the seat of her consciousness is confined to the mask and she's just very annoyed. I don't know. But we'll follow up on that some other time. For now, I think this is maybe a little bit early, but decent enough point to call the episode. So I'm going to call an end to my hunt for the evening. Thank you all for joining me. I wish all of you good hunting.